Hello, Natalie. Natalie Solomon,
Hello.
thank you so much for being here at this symposium with us. I am very excited to have you and guest audience. You're in for a great treat. Let me tell you a little bit about Natalie. Natalie Solomon. Her topic today is Freedom is a Nervous System State. Why burnout isn't a personal failure. Reclaiming energy, boundaries, and breath in a culture that rewards overdrive. Natalie Solomon, MPH, AED, is a public health practitioner, TEDx speaker, bestseller author, and the founder of Merake Life and Style. With more than 2 decades of national leadership and experience in public health and women's wellness advocacy, Natalie inspires individuals and organizations to prioritize sustainable well being through her signature philosophy: Cure Your Oxygen Mask. Her work blends evidence based wellness strategies with lived experience, transforming spaces, mindsets, and cultures towards a greater resilience, balance, and purpose. Natalie's powerful presentation draws on deep expertise in health, equity, chronic illness navigation, cultural humility, and intentional living, equipping audiences with practical tools for lasting transformation. Freedom is a nervous system state, is what she will talk to us about, and I am so excited to turn it over to you, Natalie. Thank you so much for your participation. So, audience, lean back, take a good seat, relax, and just take it in. This is your time.
Thank you so much, Sansa. This is such an honor to be able to sit with you all today. Thank you for all of you taking time out of your day to sit and listen to all of us during this amazing summit. So, as Santa said, my name is Natalie Solomon, and we're going to talk about freedom is a nervous system state and why burnout isn't a personal failure and how to reclaim energy, boundaries, and breath in a culture that rewards overdrive. So, one thing I want to start with, we kind of talk about freedom all wrong. What we usually mean, we chase external markers of freedom, financial independence, schedules, ability to work from anywhere, which a lot of folks would love to have, where they can be a digital nomad. And then we measure success by what we've escaped um, or acquired materialistically. And sometimes that's not necessarily the crux of what freedom really is. When we look into the deeper truth, during my years of public health and a lot of personal lived experience, if your nervous system is locked in survival mode, none of these things that we're talking about regarding freedom are really free. Your body is braced for the next crisis. You're just kind of waiting and on edge, like what's going to happen next. Your mind keeps running and running and running, and you're scanning for threats. You're never really relaxed. And real freedom truly begins from the inside out. So today I want to offer you a radically different lens, one rooted in biology, not willpower, and one that honors your body's wisdom instead of overriding it. So, who am I and why does this matter? So, like I said, like it's been said, I work in the intersection of public health, leadership, and a lot of lived experiences. I truly look to help high performing women build sustainable success without sacrificing their health or peace. Because if you don't have any of those, you can't really do much else. I've been in the federal space over 17 years in public health and leadership spaces. And one thing that I've noticed as time has progressed, there's a pattern for both boardrooms and hospital rooms and how we show up for ourselves and how do we take into account how we progress, how we set up tasks, how we pursue different projects and the like. So it varies. So after navigating my own chronic illness, I have a number of reproductive health issues. I'm living from a brain surgery survivor, among other things. Those definitely come into play when you're in a high pressure environment. I really had to think, how fundamentally, what if I burn out? It's not a character flaw. It's not a weakness. And oftentimes we think so, but biologically, It's a signal from your body. Physically, physiologically, your body is telling you that you need to slow down, calm yourself, and recalibrate with what you're doing. So I saw the same story playing out with myself repeatedly, some of my colleagues, brilliant, accomplished women believing it somehow was their fault that their bodies finally push back against their unsustainable demands because we love to do everything all the time for everyone without taking into account what we need first and foremost. And it really is not, really want you to understand this is not a personal failure. It's your body talking to you, giving you a heads up, time to move in a space that is for you to protect you. Now, with the culture of overdrive, we live in a world that, as you all may know, fundamentally we confuse activation with achievement. We got to go, 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 go. And that exhaustion, is an excellence. Booked and busy is something that we aspire to. And, ooh, girl, I was working these many hours and, all the things. But let's be honest. What about our culture rewards and what it punishes? Because oftentimes we're at the intersection of both. So, what we reward versus what we pathologize. So, oftentimes we celebrate over functioning, like I said, beyond your capacity because you just go, 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 working crazy hours. I can speak to that. I used to work 90 hours a week. I do not recommend. 0 stars. Do not recommend. I used to take on hyper responsibility for everything. And then there's the pushing through exhaustion and pain that, we're just going to get done. We're just going to keep pushing through, being the strong one who never breaks. And that's how we definitely show up. And it really feels like that is what is being rewarded. And we sacrifice ourselves for others. And to what benefit to us? We often judge and rest as laziness or weakness, and we apologize if we want to take a nap, if we want to take a vacation. If we tell people no and we establish boundaries, they're seen as being selfish. And then there's one thing that we oftentimes don't lean into, and that's when we acknowledge our capacity limits. It's like we're ashamed to say that I can't do that or no, not today. And then, if we're not feeling right, then it's seen as nervous system fatigue as that we're having, it's seen as complaining. And it really isn't the fact that it's your body telling you need to slow down. And then we often judge if we put ourselves first, or we often get judged, or people do judge for that. So one thing I want to say that is for you to remember, burnout is not a character flaw. It's what happens when your nervous system has been in prolonged activation without adequate recovery. And understanding your nervous system. Your body wasn't designed to operate in constant high alert, in fight or flight. You cannot always be in fight or flight. Your body is going to become exhausted from that. Your chronic illness, your nervous system gets stuck in survival mode, and it's no good. You can't do anything. You're kind of frozen, and you're temporary. You're like, no, I'll just do it for now for this one project. But then it becomes the new normal. You have your normal stress that's from day to day and, going to the store or cleaning up the house. Then there's chronic stress, which is oftentimes what we may look at as you're working your job, you're dealing with home life, you haven't taken care of yourself, and it just keeps going and going and going. And you don't get a time to come down. And that's when burnout shows up. A lot of high achievers often stay in activation longer than they should because they've learned to not listen to their body and override what those early signals should be and not listen to what really needs to be done and for you to have several seats. Oftentimes, because of what we're working on, we've been rewarded for pushing through. So you become really skilled at ignoring the fatigue or the pain and overwhelm until you just can't anymore and your body shuts down. This isn't weakness. This is biology. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it is designed to do and let you know, and it's trying to protect you by forcing you to slow down. And oftentimes we don't listen as much as we should. The reframe that changes everything. So let's think about how freedom is not escape, it's regulation. It's the ability to feel safe in your own body, to move through states of activation and rest with flexibility, and you not feel guilty about it. And reiterating, burnout is not failure, it's feedback. Your body's intelligent response demands that you've exceeded your sustainable capacity. So when you're feeling tired, you're not sleeping well, you keep reading the same sentences in a paragraph at the same time, you walk into rooms and you forget why you were in there. God forbid if you're in menopause and you got to act on the whole brain fog and all that other stuff, which is never that fun either. But you have to think about those things that come into play and what your age is, and are you taking care of your body? Are you doing what you need to be doing? So that brings us to my mantra of securing your oxygen mask first. This is the framework that I've definitely have incorporated into a lot of the things that I teach. And securing your oxygen mask, everybody knows when you're on the plane, you know if we're in the period of cabin pressure and it falls down and you're supposed to put yours on first and then help anyone else. And for this, it doesn't mean you quit your job, you don't abandon your responsibilities, or even burn down your life and start over. It's not that. It really means you're stabilizing your system so you can make clear decisions from a place of regulation and not desperation. And this framework is called the Breathe, Balance, Bloom framework. In the breath component, you regulate your nervous system and return to your baseline safety. So you take a minute and you breathe, you inhale, you exhale. Sometimes just a couple breaths in the morning can stabilize you, clarify where your head needs to be, and so you can focus on what it is you need to do for the next few hours. Balance is when you're able to establish boundaries and honor your true capacity and be realistic what you can handle, not what you think you can handle, but what you can actually handle. And then bloom is creating a sustainable growth from a regulated foundation. So what does that mean? You've been able to balance and breathe in such a way that now you've positioned yourself to bloom into that next phase of what you want to do. But regulation precedes reinvention. You cannot make wise choices about your life when your nervous system is screaming danger, danger, Will Robinson, and you have to listen. Oftentimes we don't think about it, that we need to stabilize and then really build something sustainable that can really stand up what this securing your oxygen mask first mantra can really present itself as and use as a tool for regulating your system. So let's practice an embodiment moment. So before you reset your life, it's wise that you check your nervous system. So, what I'm going to invite you into a brief regulation practice. It's not meditation or relaxation, it's a way to level set and recalibrate your nervous system. You can do this anywhere, anytime, in a meeting, at your desk, and before a difficult conversation. So, let's start off with notice where you're holding your tension. Drop your shoulders away from your ears. Try to unclench your jaw and soften your face. Inhale slowly for a count of 4. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you exhale even more slowly for 6. So you can exhale through your mouth and you purse your lips and more slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can do that one more time. Inhale slowly for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale slowly out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one more time, and then we'll wrap it up. Inhale slowly again for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can do this anytime. It's just a way to really calibrate sometimes and really helps you kind of calm yourself down before you're going into a meeting or having a really intense conversation. And that feeling that you should have once you breathe through those exercises is a subtle shift of some ease. You should be able to relax a little bit. Your shoulders should feel a little looser. And it's a little bit closer to than to freedom than being very productive. Just something you need to make sure you adhere to. At least try out. Give yourself the opportunity to really engage and embrace that practice. And what does freedom actually feel like? Real freedom isn't about doing more and pushing through, like I said, or achieving more or adding this next accolade to your repertoire or your resume. It's really about coming home to yourself. Now, what does that mean? You see the lady on the beach right now, and she's looking out at the water, which is giving her some time to like reconnect with herself, really kind of maybe think about what is she doing? What are her plans? How does she want to replicate this feeling that she may have currently by standing there looking at the ocean? It's about really how is your nervous system safety? And it allows you to show up fully without constantly performing because we are good for performing or proving that everything is okay just to make sure it looks good, which isn't always the best case scenario for us and our nervous system. So here are 5 qualities of true freedom. One is capacity, having actual energy and resources available where you're not operating from empty, which is oftentimes we don't necessarily clock it in the way that we should. We think that we're fine. We think we have the capacity to keep going. And oftentimes we don't. We have psyched ourselves out to embrace what we think is capacity. And then there's choice, the ability to decide from clarity that their compulsion, that rather than compulsion or fear. And then clarity, knowing what's truly yours to carry and what isn't. Meaning, when I talked about securing your oxygen mask first, knowing that you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. I always say that if you're going to pour from a cup, it should be from the saucer that the cup is in. Whatever that overflow is, that is what you're able to give to everybody else. But having your cup full is more important, which then kind of leads right into self-trust, where you believe your body signals and honoring your own wisdom so that you really listen to what your body is saying. And then once you do listen to your body and you kind of step into that, that you realize you've been able to embrace peace without guilt and that revolutionary act of resting without shame or justification and trying to reward yourself by, yes, going to the spa is great. I love it. I'm here for it. However, it should not be a reward-based type of situation. You should be doing this to maintain what it is that you're doing and how you function with your day-to-day life. But the truth about sustainable strength. So what does that look like? From performing to brittle strength, which means you no longer do you have to perform strength or prove your worth. A lot of this comes down to, do I feel worthy? Do I feel seen? If I don't act and don't if I don't do all these things, am I not worth what it is that is being done and or whatever project that needs to be done? You're worth being able to stop and recalibrate and be with yourself. This isn't brittle white knuckle strength or someone holding it together at all costs. You should never be forcing it to that point. Or it's too deep and embodied strength. So when your nervous system feels safe, a profound shift occurs. You actually feel strong, a deep, flexible strength of someone who trusts themselves and their capacity. So that you really are able to say, this is who I am, this is where I can operate within this space, and now I'll be able to show up in my best self and be able to help those that I want to be helping without pouring from an empty cup. And then you're built on a safe foundation. This safety frees you from overriding your body's wisdom and making sure that you actually listen to it and not just push through to the point of exhaustion. It's a foundation where your meaningful work and your genuine relationships and expressiveness thrive because you're in a safe space. You'll be able to really engage in those relationships where you can build and highlight what it is that you need because that foundation is secure. And then that leads into leading to sustainable success because you've been able to have that foundation. You're able to embody that strength and you're able to perform perform the strength without overperforming and making it seem like you can do everything. But from this sustainable success and solid ground, you're able to sustain leadership and you're able to note the external markers of freedom become possible because they've been built on trust and you learn to trust yourself and your capacity. And you're not sitting there trying to get through life, basically feeling like you're um, sinking in quicksand and you're fighting everyday activities where you really shouldn't be. And you do not need to burn it all down. You know, the lady here, sitting here taking a minute that probably will enhance where she needs to go and give her some clarity. And here's one thing I want you to remember as you leave this space. You do not need to quit your job, leave your relationship, or dismantle your life. What you need to do is stabilize your nervous system so you can make clear, grounded decisions about what truly serves you and your highest good. And that is not selfish. Because when you're regulated, you can finally use your spirit of discernment on what actually needs to change and what needs to be approached differently. Because perspective may seem like you have to take everything on all at once, but once you're clear about what your body is able to do, you really can kind of think, can I approach this differently? And then some things will need to end. Some things you're going to have to cut off. You know, some boundaries you will need to be drawn, and those decisions will have to come from wisdom rather than desperation because you've been able to regulate what you're doing and how you see yourself. So where does the ripple effect of regulation? You know, as we're talking about nervous system and doing X, Y, and Z, what does that really mean? What does it allow you to do? If you start to be able to regulate yourself, it allows for clear decisions. You really stop second guessing yourself constantly. I know when we're tired and we're overworked, then we sit and we think about, well, should I be doing this or wait, should I do that? And you kind of go back and forth a bit longer than you should when you have decisions to make. You're able to have authentic boundaries and you protect your capacity without guilt. No is a complete sentence. And it's okay to say no and not feel guilty about it, which allows you to have better relationships. Once you have your authentic boundaries, it really does translate into better relationships. You show up present, not just physically there, but you're actually engaged. And then you're allowed to have aligned action. Your work reflects your values, not just your obligations. And your obligations should not take over all the other things that you need to do because now you're performing and you're taking on things that you probably should not be. And then we have sustainable growth. You expand without depleting yourself because you've established the foundation, your boundaries. You can make clear decisions that will allow for sustainable growth. And now you know you are able to function not from a place of desperation of having to just get things done, but you're really able to continue and sustain what it is you're hoping to pursue. So when you regulate your nervous system, everything downstream improves not because you're doing more, but because you're operating from a place of resources that you've been able to calibrate and really save your energy and it's not depletion. Very important. So with the invitation, I want to say to you, you do not have to do this alone. My hope is that you leave today asking different questions, not how do I do more, but how do I honor what I actually need? Really sit and think about what do I need? Unapologetically, what do I need? And if this conversation resonated, you know, this is work I continue to do through my writing, my retreats, and my leadership spaces. I have something called the Oxygen Lounge that will be launching at the end of the month, which is really a space, it's an online community where you have this environment where you don't have to keep running and running and running. You don't burn yourselves out, you know. You really feel free in the spaces that you're navigating. This work has been rooted in my intersection of public health and the things that I've been able to observe because I'm living it. And that's one thing that I have been able to really kind of lock in on. That as I am not just telling everyone or teaching individuals, this is something that my own client, if you will, because this is things that I wish I would have heeded while I was working my 90 hours a week and ending up in the hospital and while I'm sitting there on my laptop while I'm in the ER with leads on my chest. Don't recommend that. But because I thought I needed to push and push and push, which kind of goes back to the self-worth or your imposter syndrome, and you don't, you think you need to prove your worth by all the activities that you're doing. So I want to leave you with this. Freedom begins when your body no longer feels under threat. And that's so true because you're not tense. You're not in fight or flight mode all the time. And it really makes a difference. So freedom begins in the body. One thing, just to really impress upon you, the journey from burnout to sustainable success starts with one radical act. Believing your body signals instead of overriding them because your body is talking to you. It is giving you a heads up as to what it is it needs. You have to honor your capacity instead of exceeding it. You need to regulate your nervous system instead of white knuckling through one more day. Oftentimes we're like, I can get through. It's just one more thing. I can get it. I can do it. And then going back to the framework of my Breathe, Balance, Bloom. When you're breathing, remember you're regulating your nervous system. Just taking a 5 minutes break or doing that exercise that we did earlier, or balancing and honoring your boundaries and capacity unapologetically, because you only know what your capacity is and you can't be everything to everybody. And then when you're able, that sets you up with the ability to bloom and create that sustainable growth because you've been able to breathe and balance and create an environment where you're able to really lean into your capacity and understand my capacity has been great, but now I need to stop so I can come back for another day. So I would love if you would connect with me. There is a QR code that will lead you to
Mm.
um, some goodies for you. You can you can see me on my website, which is natalieasolomon.com. My LinkedIn is Natalie A. Solomon, and my IG is also Natalie A. Solomon. Pretty much consistent across the board. So I would love to, if you want to continue this conversation. Your nervous system has been trying to tell you something, and it is time to
Mm.
listen. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. And I really look forward to being able to impart some of these ideologies and, you know, um, I guess ideas on you. And I hope that has helped and inspired you to really take care of yourself and
Mm.
listen to your body and your nervous system. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, thank you so much, my sister. A lot of people talk about the nervous system, and we talk about it in different ways because we hear things differently. We're
Yes.
individuals. But the one thing you said today that I've never heard that really resonated, real simple. When we are giving, give from the saucer, what has flown over. I love that. I see
Yeah.
that. I will
Yeah.
apply that. And audience, I hope that you enjoyed and that you too will find just the one thing that will remind you that when you are feeling tired, it's simply your body saying, Beloved, rest.
Yes.
That's all it
Yes.
means. And so, Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank
Audience,
you.
hope you enjoyed. And at the end of the symposium, you're going to get everybody's contact, including Natalie's, so you can be in touch and continue to take care of yourself. So, hang on for the next speaker and have a very good care of yourself. Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
We will see
Santa.
you soon. Be
Yes.
well.
All right.